back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I have an original tag. So this is the Ktropeathon Tag. If you're not familiar with Ktropeathon, it is a read-along that I am co-hosting with Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space and Yoon from Dr. Yoon, and we wanted to do a tag video this year to celebrate Ktropeathon. This is our second year doing it. So all of the questions here are based off of tropes that you find commonly in K-pop and K-dramas, which is what our whole readathon is based off of. If you need more information, I will link the announcement video so that way you can join in with us if you would like to. But without further ado, let's dive into the questions. The first prompt is IBS, which is hilarious, but there's a lot of K-dramas where people have to run to the store to get medication because they're having stomach issues from like embarrassment or fear or just eating something bad. So this prompt is a book that gave you a stomach ache from embarrassment or stress. I have two that I can think of, and both of them have dedicated vlogs, so I'll link both of the vlogs for those. But the one that I most recently finished is Shark Heart by Emily Hayback, and this book was just crazy. It's about a man who is transforming slowly into a great white shark, and the story of his transformation and how his wife is dealing with all of that. And I feel like it was trying to do something poignant and deep, but instead it kept telling us how deep it was, along with like really weird, like almost body horror level details of this transformation that just like made me laugh. That was my emotional response to this. So I guess maybe it didn't stress me out or embarrass me. It was just really ridiculous. The other one is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, which I actually gave 3 stars to because I thought that it had some really good elements to it and I loved it at first, but it really delved into our narrator's kind of sexual awakening, and we just spent an embarrassingly long amount of time of him obsessing over this girl that he slept with once, and it really brought the whole book down. And then there's a fever dream towards the end that also has some content in it that I feel like is just like very, like I had secondhand embarrassment for the main character. The next tag question is Ult Bias, a favorite author you can't stop talking about and obsessively reading. So a bias in K-pop is your favorite member of that band, and an Ult Bias is like your favorite of the favorites. So that's kind of what this means with an author, and it is really difficult for me to choose one author. I probably have like 6 that I could rattle off the top of my head that I absolutely love, but I think I'm gonna go with Dostoevsky. I love Russian literature in general and discovered it pre-booktube, kind of on a whim. Picked up Crime and Punishment because I'm like, I think I've heard of this somewhere before. I picked it up in my library and devoured it, and thus became my love affair with Russian literature and my absolute obsession with Dostoevsky. So out of all the Russian authors that I've loved and enjoyed, Dostoevsky is the top of the top. Question number 3 is Spicy Food, a book or an author with a very strong flavor. So another favorite author of mine is Ray Bradbury, or he's becoming a favorite author. I've read several of his books and several of his short stories and loved them all, but I think that he is not for everyone. Particularly the books of his I've read, which are Something Wicked This Becomes and Dandelion Wine. The prose in it is kind of over the top at times in its purple prosiness, to where some sentences can just kind of like pull you out of the story a little bit. And for me, he was a bit of an acquired taste, but he's not going to be for everyone. And it's very, very distinctive prose. I don't think I've ever read another book that has similar prose to his. But then in the same vein, I've read his short stories, they don't have that. They don't have that level. So I don't know if it's just what he was going for in this series that is set in Illinois. Maybe that was the point. Question number 4 is Healing, a book that you found emotionally healing. There's a lot of healing that happens in K-dramas, especially because someone always ends up in the hospital. Always. I don't know why. I guess maybe that's really common in Korea, that people just go to the hospital because they faint somewhere from overwork a lot of times, and then they're hooked up to an IV because they're super dehydrated or whatever. So anyways, a book that's really healing. So I am going to say Gentle and Lowly by Dana Ortland. So this is a Christian nonfiction. I'm trying to remember exactly what the subtitle says, but it's something along the lines of like Christ identifying with sinners and people who are struggling. And it came right at the time where I needed just the reassurance and the reminder of how much Christ loved me and how my struggles didn't mean that I wasn't a Christian, didn't mean that God loved me any more or any less based on my works, and just came at like the perfect time for me to feel so seen and so known. Question number 5 is Maknae, and the Maknae is the youngest member of a K-pop group, so the prompt for this is a coming of age story. I've read a decent amount of coming of age stories over the years, and I could rattle off quite a few that are favorites, but a book that I don't hear very many people talk about is The Yearling. So The Yearling is a story of a young boy named Jody who is growing up in Florida and has some really, really beautiful nature descriptions, and it's just like so lovely and atmospheric. And he finds this young deer and is raising it. Has multiple scenes that definitely were like heart-wrenching for me, which is kind of what you expect from a coming of age story, particularly a coming of age story that involves animals. But I loved it. Question number 6 is Aegyo, and Aegyo is like super cutesy. So when a K-pop star or idol is told to be Aegyo, they just like talk like this and they try to be so cute. And so this is a cute book that you loved. I don't read a whole lot of cute books, to be totally honest. I just did a video about 5-star books and I went through my Goodreads trying to figure out what these books had in common. And what they had in common was that they were much more meaty. So I am not really into a lot of cutesy books. But a series that I have been enjoying this year as a palate cleanser is Kuma 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 Bear, which is a manga series about a girl who is obsessed with video games, and she ends up kind of stuck in this video game where she's wearing this bear suit that gives her these incredible abilities, but no one takes her seriously because it's like a bear onesie. It's so cute and really funny, and love the art style. It's just been really fun. Question number 7 is Piggyback. Every single K-drama I've ever watched, someone gives someone else a piggyback ride. Sometimes it happens multiple times, but it does always happen. So this is a book that carried you through a difficult time. So a book that has become my ultimate comfort read is All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. I first read it in the summer of 2020, where it felt like the world was ending. Like, oh my goodness, what a difficult year 2020 was. And there was just a lot of struggles, and All Creatures Great and Small just made me really, really happy. And so it kind of brought some peace to me and took me outside of all the things that were happening and brought me to a different time and a different place with animals and small town funny stories, and it was just lovely. The next prompt is Truck of Doom. So this is another thing that happens in a lot of K-dramas. For some reason, it seems like almost every K-drama, someone gets hit by a truck and dies. I don't know why this is so common, but this is a book that absolutely floored you. So this could have been a plot twist or just a book that was unexpectedly incredible in a different way. So for this, I'm gonna kind of cheat a little bit and talk about an author, although I guess I'll mention the book Everything That Rises Must Converge by Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor is an author that floors me every single time, and a lot of times with her endings, but just overall, she really tends to look at the human condition, particularly racism and hypocrisy and kind of like this holier than thou mentality and the judgment that comes along with that. And then she turns it on its head in usually a fairly brutal and interesting way that just kind of shakes you up when you read it, which is why Flannery O'Connor maybe is not for everyone, but every single time I read anything by her, I am absolutely wowed. But the very first short story collection I read by her was Everything That Rises Must Converge, and then also Everything That Rises Must Converge, the title story, was the first story of hers that I read, and I was just like, I had to pick my jaw off the floor. Next prompt is Narcolepsy. Usually one of the leads in a K-drama will fall asleep in a weird position and or on the shoulder of the other lead. So that happens a lot. So this is a book that put you to sleep, and I'm trying to think, I have boring books that I've read recently, but the book that I can remember in my life of a book that I just was having so much trouble getting through was The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I actually read this in high school, and I actually really liked the book, but the introduction is about someone who is working somewhere and they come across this manuscript, and then you launch into the story of The Scarlet Letter. But the introduction itself, I remember it being like 50 pages long, and I kid you not, it took me almost 2 weeks to get through that, and I've been a voracious reader all of my life. So the fact that it took me that long to get through it just tells you I just kept falling asleep every single time I tried to read it. So that's the book that sticks in my mind the most. I've not yet reread that book as an adult, so I don't know if I would find the introduction quite as obnoxiously boring as I did as a teenager, but man, did that book bore me to tears for the first 50 pages. Prompt number 10 is Joseon, which is a time period during Korean history. So this is a book you read recently that is set in the past. And I read a lot of classic literature on this channel, so a lot of the books that I read are set in the past. So I think the most recent one that I've finished at the time of filming this is actually a nonfiction book called Mornings on Horseback by David McCullough, and this is a biography of Teddy Roosevelt's early years. So it was really interesting, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. I picked it up because my daughter read a biography of him towards the end of her school year, and she loved it so much and talked so much about it, so I was really excited to pick this up. But I was slightly disappointed because I thought it was going to be a biography of his entire life, and found out that that was not the case, so I didn't get that much information about like his second wife and his presidency and all that kind of stuff. So was a little disappointed in that aspect, but it was really well written. Question number 11 is Meetcute, a book about which you have a fun story to share. So this could be about your reading experience, it could be about how you acquired the book in general. So for that one, I have a book that I have finished but haven't yet talked about on my channel because I read it in June. And this is a book that I read for my in-person book club, and I think I did talk about this when I hauled this book because I picked it up at Maknae's. So the book is Fidelity by Wendell Berry. So this is a short story collection of his that includes 5 of his short stories, and I needed to find this for my in-person book club. So I had looked online, and brand new, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but the used copies were only a few dollars less. So I was just kind of waiting because I knew I was going to go to Maknae's, and this was the same price as the ones online, but it's a hardcover rather than a paperback. And I didn't realize until I brought it home and I was flipping through that this book is signed. And not only is it signed, but it was signed on my birthday, September 20th. So that's super cool too. So I was really excited when I saw that. It was just kind of like a fun little bonus. The next prompt is Hallyu, and there is this thing called the Hallyu wave, which is like the Korean influence that's spreading, which is why people talk about, you know, K-pop being so popular internationally right now. They call it the Hallyu wave. So this is a Korean book, or a book which Korea influenced you to pick up. And oh my goodness, I have so many books that I could say for this, but I think I'm going to choose Please Look After Mom, which is a book that was recommended by many of the members from BTS. They really liked this book, and I read it for Ktropeathon, which was a Korean reading event, and so I picked it up for that. And it was built to me as kind of like a mystery slash thriller. It absolutely is not. It's about this mother who goes missing, and we get her perspective at times, and then we get the perspective of her adult children and her husband, and you can see that there are things that they've not dealt with, and they have some guilt over some things. And it's much more literary with a very like psychological and emotional perspective that's happening there, just diving deep into like why they did the things that they did and the regrets that they have in their life and in how they treated their mother and that kind of thing. So it sounds like, oh my gosh, where is she? They need to find her. What's going on? But it deals a lot more with the characters' backstories and the relationship to their mother than it does with the mystery element. But it was really well done and I really liked it. Last question is K-trope, because this is K-tropeathon. Recommend a book as perfect for Ktropeathon. So, because a lot of these prompts and stuff are based on tropes that you see in K-drama and K-pop, I don't read a whole lot of books that feel like they fit some of the common things that you see, although I mean, I answered questions here. But as far as books that feel like this is a K-drama or this is K-pop or something like that, I don't have as many to recommend. I find that a lot of the translated Korean books that I have read have been much more on the serious side. However, I have a couple that I'm going to recommend. So one of them is Almond, and I read this book last year for Ktropeathon when I did a Reading Like RM from BTS vlog. And I really loved this book. This is about a boy who has some emotional disabilities and his experience growing up and his experience around other people, especially after witnessing a really traumatic crime and how he is dealing with all of that. And this book I found to be so interesting, but on top of that, it ended with a note of hope. And there's a lot of books that have been translated from Korean that are much more in the literary fiction category. And so it might not have that level of hope at the end that this one did. And I really appreciated that about it. My favorite book that I have read that has been translated from Korean, and actually I read it last year for Ktropeathon as well, is Princess Body, and I want to read another book by this author this year for the comeback prompt for our readathon. But I loved this book. This book is very, at the beginning, it feels very like folktale or fairy tale-esque because she is named after a princess in a fairy tale. And then something happens and they're living in North Korea, so they have to flee. And so the rest of the story is very much a North Korean defector story. It's very difficult to read. There's a lot of really traumatic things that happen. But I felt like the translation was so beautiful, so immersive, and I was so attached. I just loved it, and I can't wait to read something else by this author because it was just so incredibly written. I feel like this would not be a tag video if I didn't go ahead and tag some people. So I'm gonna tag a bunch of people because this is a brand new tag, but if you're watching this video and you would like to do this tag, please consider yourself tagged. But the people that I'm going to tag are Dia from Novel Idea, Crystal from Fiber Artsy, Victoria from A Musical Bookworm, Emma from The Bookish Princess, Kate Howe, Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads, Chrissy from Chrissy's Purple Library, Tia, and now I can't remember Tia's username. It used to be Tia in all the books, but now it has something to do with journaling, and she does a lot of stuff with Korean stuff, so I'd love to hear her answers for this. And also Alma, I think her channel name is Alma's Book Journey, but I know that she is reading some books for Ktropeathon, I think, so I would love to hear her answers as well. I'd also love to hear from you if you would like to answer any of these questions in the comments below. Would love to hear your answers. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.